In this lesson, we're going to loop back through all of our sample tasks, and I'm going to fill out the log section. Now, I want you to pretend during this lesson that you're actually looking over my shoulder during the course of a work week, because this is, in fact, how I use my productivity planner on a daily basis. I'm in here logging in real time as I'm getting things done. And I like doing this for a couple of reasons. Number one, creating that log gives me a nice historical record, and I like to think about this as setting my future self up for success. So when my future self comes back in to work on this task, maybe a couple of days or a week later, or even more in some cases, that log is super helpful for reloading that context and reminding myself exactly what has been done and how this task has progressed over time. And number two, as you're going to see as I walk through these, I use this opportunity when I'm creating this log in real time as a chance to really refine that next step and continue driving clarity into, okay, I've gotten this thing done. So what does that mean? How does that impact the next step? And what do I need to do in order to keep pushing this task forward? So let's walk through a few examples. And before I do that, I'm just going to go ahead and again, collapse this down. So it's a little bit easier to look at again by just hovering my mouse over that level of the indentation structure and clicking, and that'll get everything down to just a bit of an easier view to look at here. And then I'll go ahead and expand each one of these out. So finalize release communications. Again, let's pretend it's during the course of the week and I've actually just completed some work on this. So what I'm going to do here is actually, again, just nest a bullet underneath log. So hit return and then tab. And what I want to do is type the / symbol and then type the word today. And then I can simply hit enter. And what that's going to do is bring up a linked reference to today. And then I'll go ahead and type the work that I did. So let's say that today, what I actually did was finish the draft and I submitted it to the team for feedback. So I'll say finished first draft of announcement and submitted to the team for feedback. One other point here that I'll make that I really like to do, and you can experiment with this and see how it works for yourself, but I really like to, again, have the productivity planner act as a backbone or spine for all of my productivity. So I love to have a very a dense linked environment here where all of the links and resources to things that I need are in one place. So often when I send these announcements out, we work in Slack, for example, at work. So when I send that draft out to the team for feedback at work, I will go ahead and grab a link to the Slack thread where I sent it, and I'll simply type the word here. And then again, I just highlight that and hit Command K and then drop in a link to that actual Slack thread. So that way, if I need to come back through a few days later and nudge the team along, maybe because I haven't received the feedback, I can just very easily click on this link here and find that thread and go in there and nudge it along. So again, your mileage may vary there. Some people might find this a little bit cumbersome, but I really love having those links there. So again, what I've done is now created a date stamped entry and put a record of what I've done. The final step that I like to do for each task is then pause and think to myself in real time while all of the context is fresh. What does this mean? What is the next step now? So I finished the draft. I've submitted it to the team for feedback. So really my next step is waiting for feedback, but I'll say nudge the team in a few days if you haven't heard back. Again, you can see I'm actually writing this like as if it's a note to a different person. And I like to think of my future self almost as a different person. I find that's a helpful way to frame it when I'm working through this framework. So I've now finished that first draft, and I'm going to nudge the team in a few days if I haven't heard back, so I can go ahead and collapse this task because I've done everything on it that I can for now. Moving down here to the press release, I'll do the same thing. So I'll nest a bullet underneath log. Once again, I'm going to type / and today. And I'll say submitted the sample quote to Tom for his review. And once again, I will enter here and put a link to the actual email where I sent that. Okay. And once again, I'll refine my next step now. I'll just say waiting to hear back from Tom. Nudge him in a few days if needed. These sorts of things. So again, just giving my future self here a nice, easy way to reload that context and remember what I need to do next the next time I come in and look at this task. All right, finally, log here for ensure the training team is ready. Booked a meeting on Thursday. I forgot to put my date stamp. So once again, /today. Booked a meeting on Thursday. By the way, I'll take a quick sidebar here. If you're ever filling out your log retroactively, maybe you forget to fill it out in real time. It definitely happens. You can also put / and put date picker, and that will allow you to maybe pick a day a couple of days ago. So just a real easy way to do that. So booked a meeting on Thursday. Next step is prep for the meeting. You get the idea here. So that's really how I use the log. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video here now and fill out just a few more examples. I'll come back in and just rifle through those really quickly to help drive this home. And then we'll move to the next lesson. Okay, so I filled a few more of these out, and I'll just go through them real quick to drive home a couple more examples. So down here on the finalized materials selection, you can see that I filled out my log. Oops, I forgot to indent that one. Go ahead and do that. Filled out this log, and I can say I met with my wife, Hope. We picked the weathered wood color, and then I emailed Cole. And on this one in particular, I wanted to point out that sometimes there is no further action required. So for next step, I actually will put no further action required. I'll talk a little bit more about why I do that when we get to the weekly review later in this section. But again, left that note here for my future self, no further action required. And I've gone ahead and checked off that box. So that one is good to go. Sign over the insurance check. Again, no further action required. I met with Cole and signed over the check. So I'll go ahead and check that task off. And then finally, one example down here, one more example, I should say, is this log. I forgot to indent that one as well. I'm off my game this morning. But went ahead and entered that log here, finalized the meeting. So I conducted the meetings with the rest of my team. You can see here that I've entered my notes. I didn't actually go ahead and enter those, but I put like a sample here. So this is where I would have taken those meeting notes. And then my next step here is going to be process key takeaways. But I've gone ahead and checked that box off because for this week, my task was not to process the key takeaways. It was just to conduct or perform those quarterly check-ins with the team. That's been done. And so again, when we get to the weekly review later in this section, I'll talk a bit about how I take this next step and use it as a way to inform what I do with this task. So in any event, that's it for this lesson. Again, what we've done is we've gone through our sample tasks here and talked a little bit about how I use that logging to create a nice historical record of how the task has progressed, setting my future self up to reload that context very easily when I come back to the task. And then number two, using that as a real-time opportunity throughout the course of the week to continue to drive more and more clarity into the task and be very, very confident with myself that I know exactly what needs to be done to continue pushing that task forward.